Stephen Guilbeault may no longer be federal environment minister, but Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she still sees him as a threat to the province's oil and gas industry, specifically over decisions on national parks. Earlier, we spoke with the National Post's Rahim Mohamed about the latest tensions about and what exactly Ms. Smith is accusing Mr. Guilbeault of.
Well, she hasn't put forward any accusations as of yet. The premier, as your audience may know, she has a weekly radio show called Your Province, Your Premier. In the most recent episode that was broadcast over the weekend, she said she didn't trust Stephen Guilbeault. So Stephen Guilbeault, as you may know, he was environment minister under Justin Trudeau for several years. He was recently shuffled out of environment under Prime Minister Carney, but he kept his role as minister responsible for Parks Canada, which puts him in a bit of a weird situation right now. So he's minister of Canadian Heritage and National Identity, and also minister responsible for Parks Canada. You would see how Parks Canada logically links up with the Environment Ministry. I think there's less of a clear connection to Canadian identity or heritage, more of a tangential one. So Smith has basically said, she does not trust Minister Guilbeault in this role, continuing to have authority over the creation of new national parks. One, because of some concerns about his management of the Jasper wildfires in the summer of 2024 and the preparations or steps he did or didn't take in advance to clear out some highly flammable dead trees in the area where we had the wildfires. And two, and I think more immediately, he's quite consistently had an anti-oil and gas track record of being sort of aggressively anti-oil and gas. At one point, he trespassed on the premier of Alberta, Ralph Klein's personal home, to install solar panels on the roof as a prank. The premier's wife happened to be home at the time, and she was terrified. But it was a funny prank on Guilbeault's side. So Smith is basically saying, "Hey, if this isn't the individual responsible for federal parks, I don't trust him to carry out his mandate or exercise his authority in a way that's not going to sabotage Alberta pipelines or other energy infrastructure." So she's basically saying that from now on, given the current circumstances, given Guilbeault being where he is right now, that she does not want to see another inch of federal parkland being created in Alberta. She said that if Alberta kind of on its own decides that there's critical habitat it needs to protect, it will create a provincial park under provincial laws. So that's where she stands right now in terms of Minister Guilbeault.
We also discussed where exactly these national parks would go and why there's a push to create new ones.
The Liberal government campaigned on a promise to create 10 new national parks, as well as 15 urban parks. And urban parks is where there's been some tension between Smith's UCP government in Alberta and the former Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault. So during his time as Justin Trudeau's Environment Minister, Mr. Guilbeault was involved when Parks Canada negotiated directly with the city of Edmonton about creating a national park or adding national protection to Edmonton's river valleys. So the provincial government was initially cut out of these conversations. It was a bilateral conversation between Edmonton and Ottawa. That led the UCP to put forward a bill where provincial governments would need to be consulted on the creation of these sorts of urban parks around larger municipalities like Edmonton. So there's a bit of distrust on the part of the Smith government and the individual who put forward the private member's bill. Was an Edmonton area MP by the name of Brandon Lumley. So there's a bit of mistrust already in the relationship with the Parks Canada and the Alberta government over how all that went down. And there's a sense that the premier doesn't trust Guilbeault, who's held on to Parks Canada, despite now being in a portfolio that really has nothing to do with parks. and heritage. She's saying she doesn't trust Guilbeault to exercise these powers he still has to create new national parks responsibly.
Lastly, Rahim unpacked how the creation of new parks would limit infrastructure projects like oil and gas, and if it's possible for the two to coexist.
Well, there can and have been pipelines that have been run through national parks. So, for instance, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, a major pipeline to the West Coast, runs through Jasper National Park. But as you designate more national parkland toward transit sites, so there's a proposal about 50 kilometers away from the Port of Churchill in Manitoba right now. It makes the process of consultation and it makes the regulatory process and the process of approval a lot more complicated when you have to kind of work in the federal angle, the Parks Canada angle, and the impact on various ecosystems. So it's not necessarily a killer of these sorts of projects, but it does make the process to getting things like pipelines approved more challenging and more torturous.